What's up, everybody? This is Watts of Faith here. We're doing another Bible study. Today we're going to be jumping into the story of David, talking about David being a man after God's own heart. David and Goliath, that's all in here today. So let's go ahead and jump into it in 1 Samuel. We're going to jump right into it. This is week 5. Can't believe we're already at week 5, but we're starting in 1 Samuel chapter 15, 16. I'm going to explain a little bit what's going on. Here we are in 1 Samuel 15. Saul is the king here. Saul has just been rejected by God because he defied God's orders. He only half listened. He followed God's orders, but then, he thought his way was better than God's way. And he thought everything would be okay, but it wasn't. God ends up rejecting Saul, and this is where David kind of comes in. God sends Samuel the prophet to actually go in and anoint the next king. So he calls him to go to Jesse, who is David's dad, and go to his house, find all of his sons, and I will tell you what to do next. I will tell you which son to anoint. Samuel ends up at Jesse's. He sees 7 of the 8 sons there. He presents each one to God, and he even makes a statement like, oh, look at this son. He's so tall, he's so big, he's so strong. This must be the one that you're going to anoint. But God rejects all 7 of the sons that are in that room at that time. Samuel asks Jesse, do you have another son? He says, yes, it's David. David is out in the field tending to the sheep because David's a shepherd. He calls David into the house and he presents him. This is where I'm going to start reading at 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. This is a great verse here. We're just talking about how he's just rejected basically all of the 7 sons, telling Samuel, don't look at the outward appearance. And that's how, we're supposed to be as humans. We are not supposed to judge people by their outward appearance, but more by their heart. And I think God does the same thing. Clearly, he says it here. I think that's comforting to me because I know I still make mistakes. I know, we know we're all sinners. We all have problems and we're all doing things that might not please God, but he knows our heart and he knows what we're trying to do. That doesn't mean that we just keep on making these sins and, keep on making mistakes over and over again. He does want us to learn from these things, but as long as you're trying and moving forward and trying to be better, I think God's going to see that and he rewards you for it at the end of the day. Eventually David is chosen. David is anointed as the next king after Saul. And David wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the tallest. He wasn't the strongest, but he was a man after God's heart. And God anointed David at this time to be the next king of Israel. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And that's extremely important, that any person can be called. It doesn't matter what your past looks like, the mistakes you made, the good things you've done, how big or tall you are. It doesn't really matter to God. He's going to choose who he wants to choose. You just have to be ready to answer that call and move forward in your calling. We're going to jump to the next section here. We're still reading from 1 Samuel chapter 17 now, verses 4 through 11. And this is where Goliath comes in here. And Goliath, basically, he has the whole country scared right now. All of Israel is intimidated by Goliath. Goliath is a 9-foot giant. He has bronze armor all over him. He has a spear that's huge. And Goliath has challenged everybody to come out and fight him one-on-one. And if he wins, if Goliath wins, he's going to take over. He controls everything. And, but it's just a one-on-one battle. At this time, none of the Israelites are willing to go out and fight Goliath. David is sitting here. He's actually tending to his sheep, but his dad tells him to take all of this food and David's dad tells him to go to the battlefront, go to the front lines and check on your brothers, bring them food and then bring back a token so I know that they're okay. We're going to jump into the story here. We're going to read a little bit about how Goliath was intimidating the Israelites. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet and his bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leg armor, and he carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. His armor bearer walked ahead of him carrying a shield. Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. "Why are you all coming out to fight?" he called. "I am the Philistine champion, but you are only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me." When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. Goliath is big, he's arrogant, he's been a warrior since he was a little kid. And he's ready to fight anyone, but it's based off his own strength and, what he thinks he can do. This is what I was talking about, how where David was, sent to the front lines, and he's only supposed to be delivering food at this time, but he kind of hears about this. He hears about Goliath, and he hears all these things. And David, a man of God's own heart, he has trust, he has faith over fear, especially here when all of the Israelites are afraid. David is not, because he fully trusts in God, and he knows that God can win any battle no matter what at any time. Skipping forward just a little bit here, we have David's response to all of this. And here we in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 32 through 37. "Don't worry about this Philistine," David told Saul. "I'll go fight him." "Don't be ridiculous," Saul replied. "There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since his youth." But David persisted. "I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goats," he said. "When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine." This is important, and then this is powerful here, because we see David, he's declaring that he can do this, and not by his own strength, but he knows that his God is that great, and his God will deliver him from this. If this is his will, he has to move forward in this, and he truly believes it with all of his heart, because he's a man after God's own heart. So he goes in to battle. David also at this time, he's relying on his past experiences. Like, we all have times where we might not have faced a physical lion or a bear, but there's times in our lives where God has delivered us from certain situations, and we get through it. And sometimes I think we go into the future and we forget about those things, and we don't have the confidence that God is going to help us out again, but we're not looking back at our own lives. And how many times in your own life has God really just helped you and gotten you through a situation and you didn't even realize it? It's like, when I'm moving forward in my life now, it's I want to be like David and remember the times that God has delivered me, and use that as fire to keep moving forward in that faith, knowing that God will always be there. Here in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 45 through 47, David makes a declaration, and we're going to read that. David replied to the Philistine, "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head, and then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us." This is a powerful declaration here. This is David doubling down now at this point, saying that I don't care who you are, I don't care how big you are, I don't care how long your spear is, I don't care what you've done in the past. I know who my God is, I know how powerful he is, and there is no one above him. And I'm going to get this done, not because of my own strength. I don't need a sword or a spear. This is God's battle, and the Lord will win this battle for us. David here is showing great faith, great courage, and he's depending on God for all of that. Not by his own strength or his own understandings, but because of God and who he is. And that's extremely important, because that's how we have to live our lives moving forward. It's never too late. You can start that right now, but just trusting God that everything's going to be okay, and trusting God that he's going to win at the end of the day. He can fight those battles for you. When you're anxious or you're worried, you have big things coming up in your life, you feel stuck, give it to God, because God will take care of you. And he can do anything. Like, he created the world, but just by speaking. He's that powerful. He's that same God yesterday, today, and forever. Here we have Acts chapter 13, verses 22, and it says, "Why David was called a man of God's own heart." That's what it's about. "And after he removed him," talking about Saul, "he raised up David to be king, of whom he testified and said, I have found in David the son of Jesse, a man after my own heart, who will do all my will." It's David. David is a man. He's going to do what God wants him to do it at all times. And this is where he hasn't shown any sort of defiance. He's done everything he's asked. He's shown faith. He's shown courage. He's shown his dependence on God. And he's shown that his heart truly is all in for God. And so, as we know, the rest of the story is pretty self-explanatory here. But David, he has his slingshot that he brought with the smooth stones, and he loads it up, shoots at Goliath, hits him right in the forehead, and that's the end of Goliath. And that's all it took, was trust, faith, and belief in God. How can we, as people, develop a heart like David's? We trust God in all situations, no matter what. That is one way that we can definitely show that our heart is all in for God. We're always going to have challenges in life. God doesn't promise that life is going to be easy. The Bible is full of people who have gone through hard situations and tough situations. And one thing that we can do, is face challenges with faith instead of fear, because we know who our God is, and we know at the end of the day, he's going to come through for us. And he might not come through in the way that you wanted him to come through. But one thing that if you live long enough, you know that God is always on time. Another thing that we can do to help us in these times is just like David did. He remembered those times where he was fighting the lions and the bears, and God delivered him out of those situations. And we have to do the same. We have to look back on our life and realize how many times God delivered us, and use that as power, use that as a way to keep pushing forward and knowing that God is still going to come through for you today. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths." Trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord. That's, this is a verse that we should all meditate on, to be honest, that it's so powerful and it's comforting, and it's just trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. We cannot do this by ourselves. I do not know how to get through life by myself. I've tried way too long to get through life by myself, and it didn't work. Every single time I tried to do things by myself, I've always failed. In every single way, acknowledge him in all your ways. It doesn't say in some of your ways or some of the time. That's being like Saul. Saul sometimes wanted to listen to God. Saul sometimes wanted to do it. He wanted to be half in, half out, but it didn't work. God rejected him. David became the next king of Israel. The main points of this is faith over fear, having a heart of God, trusting him in all situations, no matter what. That really is the key to all of this. And that was the key to David's success, was trusting the Lord, believing him no matter what, knowing he's gotten you through tough situations before and he will do it again. We're all going to have Goliaths in our life. There's going to be times where we face lions and we face bears. You just have to realize that you don't have to do it alone. I just encourage you to think about your own life and the things that you're going through, and what are these worries that you're so worried about. There might be Goliaths. I'm not saying that those worries aren't real and they're not big and they're not scary, because they are. We face scary situations all the time. We have to remember that we have a God who is the God of all gods. He is the real one. He's going to get us through anything. Just like when, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in that fire. He didn't get them out of the fire, but he was there with them in the fire, and he kept them safe. And he did eventually deliver them from it. There's times where you're going to have situations where you feel like you're going through that fire. You feel like that bear, that lion is, 2 inches from biting your neck, and you don't know what to do, but God is there. You can call out to him, and you just call out to him, Make him the first person that you call out to. Acknowledge him in all your ways. And just watch what God will do in your life. If this message spoke to you today, I hope you will like and subscribe and come back for more videos in the future. Thank you.